All right, guys. Hi, hello. My name is Mia. I'm the community lead for Pathlight. We have here Liam. I don't want to butcher your last name because people have butchered my real name before in the past. So can you help me out respectfully say your last name?
Certainly. My last name is Stojanovic.
I'm going to try to say that.
Yeah,
Stojanovic.
you nailed it.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Yes. So Liam, as we were talking earlier, one moment, sorry. As we were talking earlier, you are a front-end engineer at PCs or Pieces?
Yeah. So I began my startup team role as a developer advocate, but I was quickly able to illustrate value in front-end engineering. And so now I work on our browser extensions for our product.
Oh, wonderful. Is it okay to tell me more about being a developer advocate and what you do when creating browser extensions? I would love to know more about that.
Yeah, certainly. So to start, the developer advocate role is very loosely defined, and I've seen the title only emerge the past few years. Really, what it
Right.
entails is understanding your customers and what they are really looking for from your product.
Mm-hmm.
So when I began, my role was split between content marketing as well as user interviews and working with the team to create a unified marketing strategy for our product. And
Mm-hmm.
that begs the question: what is our product? The
Right.
pieces the pieces product is a tool for developers,
Okay.
and the really the what we all noticed, we're all really technically minded, and what we all noticed is that the code snippets we work with on a daily basis, so things that come from Stack Overflow, things that come from developer documentation, there are a lot of these small copy and pastable pieces of code that we would oftentimes lose to the ether, mostly because those code snippets weren't good enough for version control. But how do you organize code snippets? Do you put them in a folder? Do you use GitHub Gist?
Okay.
Do you create a text file with your snippets? And so we felt that there had to be a better way to save these things across all the different tools we use, everything from VS Code to Google
Okay.
Chrome. And we created a tool that allows you to save those snippets very easily. And it also auto-classifies them so that you can search them later with ease. And the grand ambition is for our product, assisted with machine learning, to allow developers to stay in their flow quickly and efficiently. Being able to recall that code snippet you need for whatever function you're programming. That's really the ambition with our product, and I'm really proud of our most recent release. So go check it out, pieces.app.
Pieces.app. Okay,
Yes.
everyone, if you got that, again, it's pieces.app. That's really interesting. I know a friend of mine recently, this is a junior developer that was thinking of trying to find a way how to save code snippets, actually. So this is really fascinating. Do you know what tech stack that's built in?
Yeah, so the main tech we leverage is Flutter and Dart. We chose that because, well, there are multiple reasons, and ultimately I'm not the sole source of that information, but it's easy to build across platforms for it, and it seems to be fairly interoperable with the other tools we've built. So Flutter and Dart are what power our main code base.
I see. And then you mentioned you did some marketing too. So
Mhm.
do you have a marketing background or do you have a CS background?
Yeah, so my background is in cybersecurity. That's what I studied in college.
Okay.
And that actually, so the pure computer science route is something I began pursuing in college, my freshman year. But
Okay.
to make a long story short, I was not mature enough to really take on that course load as I should have as a 18-year-old. And
Right.
I pivoted into cybersecurity. And what that really gave me was a pretty holistic understanding of everything from how does networking work? How does information get from one computer to another, to understanding what are the most common vulnerabilities with operating systems, with web applications, And on the side, I would always be programming applications in Java or Python or JavaScript. And so I'm a little bit all over the place when it comes to my tech expertise, but really it boils
Okay.
down to systems administration from cybersecurity, and then also front-end development and having learned JavaScript the past 2 years.
Right. So that's really interesting. So being that it seemed like you were focused on more back-end technologies in the past, how did you transition from back-end technologies like Java, JavaScript, Python to now being a front-end engineer?
Yeah. So one of the greatest tools in my arsenal, and I will repeat the name over and over, is Free Code Camp. Free Code Camp allowed me to build websites, allowed me to build small little JavaScript apps that ran in the browser. And I was really diligent to get through the curriculum, not all of it, but the first 2 modules I went through when COVID began. And to their credit, if you complete the responsive web design course front to back, you're totally equipped to build a mobile-first responsive website. So I really would just do that in my spare time. Rewinds to a year and a half ago, I was mostly working gig economy jobs. So I was doing Uber,
Okay.
I was doing TaskRabbit, etc. And then once I came home from work, I would work on Free Code Camp.
I
And
see.
it felt pretty grindy, but it was really gratifying to build a skill over the course of months and years. So that's what really allowed me to get into front-end development in the first place, was Free Code Camp. And there are many other resources, but that's the big one that comes to my mind.
Right, that's fantastic. And I guess along with being a developer advocate or front-end engineer, I have many questions for you as being a content creator. I have here from Lizzie. Her question is, how do you think content creation has helped you in your career development? Did you start creating content before you were hired as a dev, or afterwards, during?
Yeah, that's a great question. So shout out Lizzie, thank you. What content creation forced me to do was really understand so I began my content creation career, if you will, by doing technical tutorials. And if you're doing a technical tutorial, you got to really know front to back what you're doing.
Right.
And even in post-production, when you're editing a video, if you're making too many mistakes during your recording session, well, it becomes harder and harder to edit. So I was hell-bent on technical tutorials. I made technical tutorials related to cryptocurrency, and that was really the inception there. I showed people how to mine a cryptocurrency using Ubuntu and various pieces of software. And that was something I was able to showcase during my job search. I was able to say, hey, listen, I've put together these materials, presentations, and videos that illustrate my expertise in being able to present content, like technical content, in a digestible way. So I really enjoy content creation. I wish I was able to do it more as of late. And then on the side, I really like flying my drone. I have a DJI Mavic Mini, and I gotta say,
cool.
Drones are really fun, and the content you can get from those are next level. It really just is a unique perspective, and it's super fun. It's techie, it's creative, and it's just it's something I really enjoy.
Right. I used to own one for just like a week, and then I kind of just didn't know what to do with it and didn't have time. So I'm glad someone out there is also pursuing their hobby as a drone cinematography.
And to add to really close out Lizzie's question, content creation was something I was able to showcase to employers. It helped build my own online persona. And overall, I've met people and made connections I wouldn't have otherwise made because of that content. it really forces you to think about how you would present a technical complex topic in an easy way. And that's certainly a skill in itself. So yeah.
Right. It definitely is a skill in its own. I feel like within the tech Twitter space, most people emphasize on like hard skills, but soft skills are also a great way to, help us in being a developer, because like you said, you need to kind of learn how to teach, how to like elucidate what you're thinking about, like to a 5-year-old. I like Reddit's subreddit of teach me like I'm 5, or talk to me like I'm 5 years old. And I feel like when someone really knows what they're doing, they're able to explain a complex subject or complex process to a 5-year-old.
And just a side note, I'd love to touch back later on soft skills versus hard skills when it comes to landing a developer job and also working as a developer. Yeah.
Right. Well, like we can touch on it now. How do you feel like soft skills versus hard skills could help one as get a job as a developer?
Certainly. So there was this meme I saw on Twitter a few months ago that said it was when Twitch experienced an outage, and the author of the tweet humorously said, Twitch is currently experiencing an outage because their engineers did not grind enough LEET code. LEET code being a website to practice algorithms, data structures, etc. And it's pretty hilarious because the conventional wisdom that you see a lot on tech Twitter is, oh, grind more LEET code, code wars, etc. And those are very helpful resources for being able to solve more bite-sized problems with algorithms, with data structures, with really working with software. But it doesn't teach you how to communicate your solution to another person. It doesn't teach you how to really write codes that's going to be logical and readable by others. So the soft skill I've had to pick up as a front-end engineer is understanding how to write code that will make sense to others without me having to sit down and explain it for the course of 3 hours. I want the end goal is for I try to think of my development work as though someone is going to soon replace me or someone is going to work under me. How would I make the code readable, digestible, and understandable for others? And that's a trial by fire problem. You really have to just get out there and begin writing code for others. And you might be thinking, well, Liam, I as a viewer don't have a software development job, and you don't explicitly need one. You could kick off a project on GitHub or contribute to open source projects yourself, and that certainly would give you a footing in that realm.
Right. That's incredible. I feel like there's some software developers that I used to work with before. I feel like didn't really understand how to communicate properly. I would just ask them a question and they would just kind of point at the solution. But me, without any computer science knowledge in the past, I was like, I don't understand how to, put A and B together. So definitely it's a skill. A friend of mine who works at PayPal currently as a iOS engineer taught me about the rubber ducking communication tip yesterday. Yeah, shout out to Stephanie. She says that's like a big thing in the tech space.
Certainly.
Do you have a rubber ducky yourself?
Yeah, I usually, well, sometimes I torture my roommate with the code I've written and explain it to him. But other times, yeah, I'm just explaining it out loud by myself. And that really helps you think about, why am I writing this way? And is this going to be confusing to someone else who picks this back up? So, yeah.
Right. Any other tips for other junior developers that might want to dive into like content creation or like, writing or their vlogging and trying to really find their voice in this space?
Yeah. So the big thing is that you got to start small. Rome was not built in a day. And it's very easy to look at the very established content creators on YouTube, on Twitter, on TikTok, and say, oh, Web Dev Simplified has
Right.
tons of subscribers and very comprehensive content. And he
Mm-hmm.
does. I love Web Dev Simplified, and Kyle, highly recommend you check him out. But he didn't get to that point magically. It's something you have to practice. And to me, what is really important when it comes to content creation is just bite-sized progress. So that means filming for, say, 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, and just practice enunciating and explaining things on camera or on stream. And after a while, when you really begin to practice those skills, it just becomes easier and easier to not only get in the zone doing those activities, but you'll find that your quality of content increases as well. So bite-sized, like just try to explain one thing in your program, screen record yourself. Maybe it doesn't have to be a camera. It could just be you talking to the mic, and you screen record yourself explaining maybe one function. And then you can go from there, try to explain a project that you made on camera. And after, you'll get cycles doing that, as well as creating supplementary content like a presentation or a PDF. So it's all about small incremental progress. Yeah.
Fantastic. So speaking of small incremental progress, I actually listened to some of your episodes from your podcast, stating that people like to hear the bite-sized aspects of your of what you guys need to share. So tell me more about how that got started and how you got into the crypto world, because I honestly don't know anything.
Yes, I would love to. So I'll start with the second part of your question, because that'll get us the first.
Yeah.
The really the initiation of cryptocurrency, the way I was introduced to crypto was through the internet. I was this is certainly a generational drift, but myself as a preteen and teenager, I always wanted to be on the computer. It was a borderline addiction, I suppose, but now everyone has screen times of like 10 hours a day. So,
right.
But as a kid, my parents were worried about how much time I was spending on the computer playing video games. But on one fateful day, I was browsing some web forums at the age of 12, and I encountered a forum post where the signature of the forum of the poster was a Bitcoin address. And I thought to myself, Bitcoin address? Like,
I see. That? Okay. So when you were 12 years old, sorry, but how long ago was this? Was this like 2000?
11.
Okay, 11. Okay.
Yep. And so in 2011, I saw this intriguing post about a Bitcoin address, and I started looking up Bitcoin. Pretty quickly after I had gotten the Bitcoin client on my computer and received Bitcoin from what is known as a Bitcoin faucet, right. I had this aha moment. And the aha moment was, I have wealth represented on my computer as a file. That is crazy, because before that, you had to have a credit card company or PayPal or a bank tell you that, yes, you have this money in this account. But with Bitcoin, it was different. Your computer itself had a file file that represented value. And that was a crazy revelation to me. I keenly kept an eye on Bitcoin. And at the time, the value was, I'm spitballing here, but I want to say about $10, $15.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah. And so people, I got all kinds of conventional wisdom. The conventional wisdom said, Liam, this is a penny stock. This is some BS internet money. There's no value here. It's all made up. Right. And as the years continued to progress, there were plenty of naysayers. There were plenty of people who said crypto is a fad. Crypto is going to go to zero. And through all that turbulence, including the early days of Bitcoin when it was largely used for drug marketplaces, And it just continued to accrue value. More people got interested in it, more people purchased it and held on to it. So I'm not here to evangelize cryptocurrency because it does have its pitfalls. It's not the saving grace that society needed. But what it does do is it makes people think critically about what is money, how is money distributed, and who is the ultimate authority as to who should be printing all of this. So it just really made people it made people think critically about the money supply and about what value really is and what money is. So that was when I was about an early teenager. I bought some Bitcoin with my friends at the age of 14, and then quickly sold it a few
Oh my
months
goodness,
later.
like 14.
So I'm not a Bitcoin millionaire or anything, but I really was in it for the technology. I thought the technology was more compelling than the value of it. I just thought it was really cool. I could send Bitcoin to my friend to buy a Red Bull or something like that. That was kind of the stuff that filled me with glee as a kid. So fast forwarding to last year, my good friend Michael and I were on a trip together for New Year's, and we came up with the name Candid Crypto, just kind of in organic conversation.
Okay.
And we decided to roll with it. We were like, hey, we talk about crypto all the time. We are incessantly talking about this stuff with our friends. Like they're sick of it. Like they don't want to hear more about crypto. So we were like, all right, let's make a podcast. And we naively said, all right, we'll make a podcast, and didn't realize how much work it entailed. You have to have a website, you have to have a podcast feed, you have to have cover art, you have to make your website appealing to people, you have to make your podcasts appealing to people. I mean,
Right.
we also had to find our niche. Who are we marketing this to, and why do they care? And
right.
we don't have all of the answers nowadays, but we do have a much greater understanding of what people are looking for when it comes to crypto information. And to me, that is largely just no nonsense takes on the crypto world. Far too often, people are pumping their coins on Twitter, people are pumping their coins on Reddit, and it's refreshing to have a take that isn't completely hijacked by the monetary incentive of the coin. Yeah.
Right. That's fantastic. I mean, I feel like I said, I have very limited knowledge on the crypto or Web3 space that I want to eventually grow. But I think crypto did kind of make learning about finance cool and like glamorous and sexy in a way, whereas before, it wasn't really that mainstream. I was actually a finance major before I graduated marketing. And I thought to myself, like, I don't think I belong in finance. I mean, most of my friends are going to Goldman Sachs, and I feel like finance is just like such a very like I have to be robotic world. But eventually, I just met some founders recently that for all different backgrounds and are trying to get into that space and investing and
Well, and that's what I really like about cryptocurrency and some of the aspects of Web3. Historically, if you had a poor credit score, you were typically doomed to 20 to 30% interest, credit cards, if not more.
Right.
What crypto allows you to do is, if you do own some Bitcoin, you can borrow against your Bitcoin and pay 1%, maybe sometimes less. It enables individuals to have access to borrowing that were usually only reserved for accredited investors or people who had established lines of credit. So that's where I feel it's really empowering for the average user. And in addition, you can build your own decentralized finance product, as you just described. And that just wasn't possible before. It's kind of like how Uber disrupted our entire notion of how you get a ride from point A to point B. You're not calling a taxi anymore, you're flipping out an app. And they sidestepped a lot of the legislation in some regards around how taxi services were run and managed by, municipalities or state governments. And the same thing has happened with decentralized finance. People build these decentralized finance products, but aren't necessarily compliant with, say, what the SEC regulates in the United States. And that's an American perspective, but
right.
but yeah.
Oh, all fantastic stuff. Oh my goodness. I need to do my own research after this, but I'm sure I appreciated it. I'm sure everyone else did too. On to the other questions. Sergio from Pathlight wanted to ask, why did you start with Linux? Sorry, I don't know if I'm saying this right, actually. Linux or Linux, and how beneficial was it in learning how to code?
Yeah. So again, this does go back to my teenage years. I recall the first laptop I had was Windows 7, probably. And pretty quickly, I decided that I didn't like Windows for various reasons, probably teenage angst. So I figured, okay, I'm going to get rid of Windows and install an operating system called Arch Linux, which is frankly the most convoluted and memed one of the most memed Linux distributions out there, because it's kind of obtuse by design. You build it out yourself and you install the desktop environment and all the little widgets you want, and even the window manager itself you pick. So I started with that, and it took me 2 days to set up my computer, like two entire days to get my operating system running. I was flipping through these wiki articles I'd printed off my parents' printer. And what it did was it forced me to think about how the Linux operating system functions and how programs, like what the sort of flow programs have in that operating system. I felt equipped after working with Linux for a year or two to start writing simple scripts. So I was able to automate small things, everything related to backing up my file system periodically, to fetching emails. And that was actually really useful come around college. I didn't feel as though my systems administration course load was insurmountable because I had that Linux background and experience with shell, with the terminal in essence. So Linux was difficult to start with, but immensely rewarding. It really did help with my programming skills, because you think about how your application will interface with an operating system.
Makes perfect sense. It definitely seems like you're just anti conforming culture. You're like, you know what, I'm just gonna go against what the majority of society is doing. I'm gonna get into Bitcoin, where this is like a novel thing that I've never really heard of. I'm gonna get into Linux because why not? You definitely are a pioneer in that case. It seems like it.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess so your second question, with all the other things that that you juggle, how do you find a balance with it all? And like, how do you have some structure to your day that you you are okay with all these other parts of your life?
That's a great question. So I quickly realized as I ramped up the amount of projects I had that it's not realistic to take on more than 2 to maybe 3 things at a time. It's just impossible to juggle anything more than that. So paradoxically, my life has gotten a lot simpler. I try to do a few key activities each day, but fundamentally, for my mental health and sanity, I have to sleep, I have to eat food that's healthy, drink water, move my body, and I like to hang out with friends on the weekend. So in essence, on a day-to-day basis, I really just try to move my body a bit. I try to code for an hour at the very least. And then I have podcasting sessions scheduled in after hours. But for the most part, it really helps to narrow your scope, because if there's too many projects going on and too many things you context switch between, it quickly becomes really, really, really insurmountable to tackle everything at once. So there's a Goldilocks zone. Like one project is fine, two projects is fine, three projects is really pushing it. And it helps to just keep your life simple and predictable. Habits are really important to me, and I really do try to work out, to code, and to make my day-to-day consistent. So
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So speaking of habits, what's your typical morning routine?
yeah, yeah. So there's there's I'm pretty obsessed with productivity. I like to keep track of how productive I'm being. And
Hmm.
that usually involves screen time and weekly goals that I set on Sunday, seeing if I hit those the
Hmm.
next Sunday. But on a typical morning, I wake up a little earlier. I wake up at 6 a.m. And what that allows me to do is take a little bit of time to just be in my own head, be able to kind of digest like um, what I'm going to do with the day and what I'm trying to accomplish. So wake up, ponder for a bit, which usually involves just kind of, either reading or walking around the house or, mindlessly scrolling my phone. It kind of depends on the morning. But
Right, right.
following that, yeah, I try to squeeze in a workout, and then the current startup role I have takes up a good chunk of my time, 8 to 9 hours a day. And to wind down, I'll either go on a walk, listen to a podcast, or hang out with friends. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are the days I delegate out where I'm working till sometimes 9 p.m., which is honestly excessive, but I'm young and I feel capable of doing it. So I decided to
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it's not going to be forever, but fundamentally, I do enjoy the grind, if you will. It's really
Okay.
gratifying to continue to build candid crypto on the side, to learn programming, and that all of those activities are supplemental to my current startup role. So so yeah, the routine is pretty cut and dry. Wake up at 6, get my bearings, work out, eat food, go to work, and yeah, then come home and relax or maybe learn some stuff on the side.
Fantastic, fantastic. Seems like, you got to have some structure in your day. It might seem that like you said, it's dry, but like me and a former AMA speaker spoke about the other week was sometimes like there are unglamorous parts of life that you just kind of have to do to, keep yourself steady.
Most certainly. And sometimes the kind of monotonous stuff can be it can be grounding. It allows you to have a perspective that's more real, I suppose. Yeah.
Right, right. Especially in like the world where there are a lot of things online that is like just fed to us. But I'm glad you mentioned about how hard it is to context switch. You kind of need to just focus on like two or three things at a time to not burn yourself out. But I also like the fact that you emphasize that you allocate Monday through Wednesday for the grind since you are able to at this time of your life. There's some balance there. You grind Monday through Wednesday, but maybe like ease up on Thursdays and Fridays. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
because I mean, again, going back to tech Twitter, there's just too much content about. In my opinion, I see a lot of content that revolves around glamorizing, coding or working for 12 hours a day every day, and that's asinine. You don't have a life. You gotta live a little. You gotta feel. You gotta be with people. That's really
Right.
important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I
So.
definitely understand. I was just thinking about it the other day for myself, where I'm like, oh my goodness, like all I really do is like learn or like work. But at the same time, I've been also doing that for the past year. And if you like it, it's fine. If it's there's some kind of exhaustion or like being tired where if it's gratifying to you, then why not?
Yeah.
What people
Exactly.
have the ability to. I know that everyone's lives are different. There's different responsibilities for everyone too.
Yes.
So with all that, do you keep a schedule for your content creation? Like definitely, I understand that work is kind of structured, but do you give yourself some kind of goal where like you have to produce something once a week, bi-monthly?
So yes, that's also a great question. Content schedules are super important when it comes to content creation and building out your brand. And I am not here to say that I have been perfect with content creation schedules. I have not. Sometimes things go south. Sometimes life throws curveballs at you, and that's okay. The objective really is to have those, the objective my co-founder and I have is we have things in the schedule for the next 2 months. And those typically involve recording sessions, editing sessions, and then taking care of miscellaneous tasks.
Mhm.
When it comes to podcasting specifically,
Mhm.
there's really only one thing that gets you good at podcasting, and that's practicing podcasting. So
Right.
time behind the mic is really important to the both of us. And we make an effort to get at least 1 hour a week, even if it's content we'll never use and never share. We want to practice having that dialogue, exploring each other's thoughts, and creating content that people find valuable. It's what we also noticed is that, yeah, we had great conversations about cryptocurrency prior to starting the podcast. But then
Mhm.
when you're actually making and recording a podcast, your assumptions about what you thought was good content might not apply in the way you anticipated. It might be
Right.
appealing to you and your friend group, but then you realize, oh, this isn't as suitable for a general audience as I thought. And then you have
Right.
to start experimenting with different styles of explanation
Mhm.
of the way you go about explaining a topic. And so that's it's funny because I feel as though as the podcast has progressed, we've become more candid and comfortable on our
Okay.
own show. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I feel like that's what makes a podcaster successful. Just, being really comfortable and making it as if they're actually talking to friends,
Mhm.
right? And obviously, yeah, I understood the couple of episodes I listened to from your podcast. And if I can, I'm not an expert in crypto, and if I can like kind of understand it, then I feel like the general masses like myself could also.
Yeah, and Mia, I just wanted to add to that as well. There are certainly days uh, when my co-host and I don't want to show up to a recording session, but I feel strongly. I push for it, and I'm like, hey, we should do this. It's really important. Like, let's make time for it. There are going to be bad days, and bad days are okay. If you do a recording session and you're like, oops, that was kind of crappy. Well, that's all right. Now you know, and you can use that information to hopefully do a better job come around the next recording session. So it's all about persistence, really.
Right, persistence, trial and error. So we spoke earlier with in the topic of podcasting, content creation, that when you want to start a podcast, it's not just starting a podcast. There's so many other layers that isn't really obvious at the moment, maybe. So how do you guys market your podcast so the general masses will find out about it and learn more about the other space of what is crypto?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Um, we began marketing this show really by word of mouth. That's kind of how we began.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of this excuse me. There is this sort of expectation that all the marketing activity will revolve around social media, and by and large, it does.
Mm-hmm.
It gets you the most leverage in more cases than not to use social
Right.
media.
Mm-hmm.
But it can also be really effective to just name drop your podcast or write down the website URL when people ask about it. Because I guess in my specific case, people comment on my voice. They say, Liam, you have a great voice for radio. And I'm like,
Right.
I got
Someone
a
just commented on that right now over Twitch.
podcast. Yeah. So that exposition is what typically leads to is to me bringing up the podcast itself. And so we began word of mouth marketing. But I really realized that the most effective social media for me to speak on was Clubhouse. Clubhouse is a great way for me to
Oh, I
promote candid
see.
crypto. And
Okay.
I like Clubhouse a lot because it's like an interactive podcast. You listen
Mm-hmm.
to people, and then like if you want to talk, you can get on stage and ask questions. And
Right.
so I try to sit in on all kinds of things, everything from voice acting Clubhouse rooms to cybersecurity Clubhouse rooms, and
Mm-hmm.
crypto, everything in between. And if you link your if you are able to ask intelligent questions and participate in a conversation, people will check out your bio, and you can get a lot more exposure from that than you might originally anticipate.
I see, I see. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. So speaking of Clubhouse, I know everyone was kind of on Clubhouse a year or two ago, before Twitter Spaces. Do you and
Mhm.
your co-founder utilize Twitter Spaces at all?
I recently have been getting into Twitter Spaces. I attended the Replit town hall yesterday.
Okay, okay.
Because they
How was that?
Well, it was pretty fun. The key takeaway I got from it was that Replit wants to do a hackathon later this year, which I'm very keen on. I love hackathons. And I also encourage anyone listening who is, beginning their career in tech to participate in a hackathon themselves. They're a great way to learn how to build something really quickly. And
Right,
that's a super helpful skill down the road, especially figuring out how to narrow the scope, how to, build a minimum viable product, et cetera, et cetera.
right.
So Replit talked about their hackathon they're hosting later this year, and they were asking for feedback. So I told them, hey, if you make it point-based or gamify it, then, you'll win me. So
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah.
We Pathlight loves hackathons too. I was actually part of one last month. So if you want to get into a Pathlight hackathon, definitely speak to Lizzie or Sergio in the future, guys. Or
Yes.
Liam.
Yes, we'll certainly follow up on that because I'm very interested. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah. And I joined my experience last month definitely taught me how valuable it was to just like work with people, all things GitHub, and just yeah, to create a minimum viable product. It was fantastic. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Love Pathlight for that. So with everything that we have talked about so far, from your work as a developer advocate, as a content creator, as a podcast host, what are now your plans for the future? Let's say for the next couple of years, where do you see yourself career wise, and where do you see your podcast taking off?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, when it comes to future ambitions, so my current day-to-day largely revolves around development work and programming. And I feel as though that has just begun. Programming to me is really important. It bends my brain in a weird way every day. And I feel like it's important for your brain to be bent from time to time. It really helps you expand and think critically about things in your life, problems you might be solving, relationships you might have. So I would see myself in a few years continuing to learn programming, and my heart and soul really lie in the startup world. I love
Okay.
startups. I love the early stage of a company because there is so much to build, and there is so much groundwork that you as an individual can establish in what potentially might take off significantly. So I'm quite optimistic with my current startup Pieces, and
Okay.
I would see myself, yeah, I would see myself sticking with Pieces for the long run. We're really doing a lot as a company. I work with a fantastic team of really talented individuals, and I use our product. I am a user of our software because it genuinely helps me with my development workflow. And my long-term ambition is really to start my own startup. But there's I've attempted to do that in the past, and it was actually the decision to join an existing startup was one that I was very aware of and wanted to pursue,
Mhm.
because when you are by yourself, it's a lot more difficult to begin getting off the ground.
Right.
Through my freelancing activities, it became obvious to me building software comprehensively front to back is very difficult.
Right.
And there were things I did wrong. I should have narrowed the scope of work for the projects I did. But ultimately, what matters to me is the team, the people, and I love the people I work with. So long-term ambitions include learning programming very well and building high-quality software. But then that kind of leads to, so what? Like, why? Why do that? And that has, my mind goes to a few places. But ultimately, I'm optimistic on the future of humankind. I think we will persevere. I think we'll persevere through, existential threats that our society faces currently.
Right.
I really am optimistic on that. And ultimately, I think software will allow us to live what would be considered like a utopian sort of future compared to the way we live now. The amount of inequality in our society is, something that we can hopefully look back on in 40, 50 years and think to ourselves, wow, that was incredibly backward. Why did we ever allow this to happen? And I'm not saying software directly correlates with, solving societal issues, but I think that I can do good by building things that aren't strictly for data collection, that aren't invasive of users' privacy, things that respect the new digital paradigm we live in. The tech giants, the current tech giants we have, I mean, they really do not respect user privacy or data at all. And I hope to make an impact in that space in some shape or form.
That's so fantastic. Yes, there's definitely, being someone that has a background in cybersecurity and with crypto, with that decentralized monetization. Sorry, I just wanted to get it right. It's really great that you want to make the world a little better, a better place than how it is today by kind of making something or building something that doesn't, take everyone else's data. Because I definitely feel that there is a need for that in today's society, being that like whatever's online is really the currency that we exchange for having internet itself.
Yeah.
And it can kind of, while the internet can sometimes be amazing and we meet people like you, Liam, and Lizzie, but at the same time, there's also some flaws in the internet as well, right? Just like with everything in life, there's its positives and there's its negatives.
Certainly. What we have seen historically with, computers and the internet is that they get built, we jump headfirst into them, and we think about the consequences after the fact.
Right.
At the very least, I would love to begin pioneering a new way of thinking about developing software where we think about the potential repercussions of, anything that's built and implemented. Like, what does it mean for the user? What does it mean for their privacy? What does it mean for their data? I think all that stuff is increasingly pressing as the days go on.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Liam, for your time. A lot of great gems that you've dropped in the past hour. We have 5 minutes left, but if there's like, one tip that you could give your past self, or someone like a junior developer starting out their career, what tip would you give them?
That's a great question. Believe in yourself. It's really easy to not believe in yourself. It's really easy to have imposter syndrome and to think that you aren't good enough, or that you haven't worked hard enough, or that you just don't measure up. And that is often not the case. It's hard to be confident in your abilities and your outward, demeanor. But what I've learned the past few years is that there never is a good reason to be shy about what you're passionate about and what you know. And however you can illustrate that, you most certainly should. So there's no better time than the present. Become your own best friend, and learn to be confident in yourself. That's what I would have gone back and told my teenage self for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Liam. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Have a great day. And if anyone wants to check out your podcast or check you out on Twitter or any socials, do you want to shout those out?
Yeah, certainly. So you can reach our podcast at candidcryptopodcast.com. And then my Twitter was in the Pathlight tweet that was sent earlier, which you can find on, well, here, tell you what, I'll just drop my Twitter in the Twitch chat. That'll be the easiest. Because my name is kind of annoying to spell. Oops.
No worries, no worries. Mia is just my nickname. My real name is people often get it wrong. That's why I wanted to ask you how to pronounce your last name. All right, so
what's your real name?
Milucia. It's from both of my grandmothers, Milagros and Lucia. It's got a lot of Filipinos combined names together just for some compromise in the family. So my mom and my dad got both of their mothers' names and got Milucia. So no one really has that name, and not a lot of people know how to pronounce it. So I just go by Mia.
Right on, right on. Well, I can relate to having a unique name. It's
Right. All right, Liam. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mia. Yep,
Bye.
you too. Take
Bye,
care.
guys.
Bye-bye.